I'm David Horvath, and I've titled my presentation "Water, Water Everywhere," and I think this kind of sums up my past research experience and kind of the trajectory of my research, and really the kind of the future research that I'd like to do. Um, and every kind of aspect of my research thus far is kind of linked to water or liquid that behaves like water. Um, and so I'm originally from Austin, Texas. Didn't go too far for undergrad in San Antonio at a small liberal arts college, St. Mary's University. And I got a BS in physics and math. And it was so small that they didn't really have any sort of geosciences program. Only till the kind of the last years I was there did they have any sort of Earth environmental program. But I was fortunate enough to be able to do undergraduate research right down the road at Southwest Research Institute with Kurt Rutherford and Randy Gladstone, particularly looking at UV spectroscopy on Mars and the Moon. So on Mars, looking at atmospheric density profiles using Mars specum and stellar occultations to get the density of Mars atmosphere. And then LRO more on the instrument side, and looking at kind of these permanently shadowed regions on the Moon. Kind of the link to the theme of this talk is just looking for these frost absorption features in these permanently shadowed regions on the Moon. And so this work and some kind of interest in geophysics really got me wanting to pursue something that was dealing with water, but also geophysics. And I think this was around the release of some great GRACE publications that were looking at soil moisture changes on Earth. And so with that in mind, I kind of went to a geophysics program at Colorado School of Mines, which is a little odd. I mean, considering that mines is kind of known to be primarily industry driven. But there are a few planetary scientists there, and one in particular, Jeff Andrews Hanna, had done some work on gravity, but also had looked at hydrology on Mars, on kind of past Mars. And he had a project that was looking at and trying to explore and characterize Titan's hydrology. And so in this case, we're not cheating a little, this isn't water, but it's this hydrocarbon-based liquid that behaves like water. And this was a fairly big study, and this is just kind of one slice of it, but looking to kind of compare the observed lake distribution on the left here to these a hydrologic and atmospheric model of Titan, and finding that if you have too high of a permeability in your subsurface, you really can remove all that water out into the low latitude arid regions. But a lower permeability can kind of keep that liquid at high latitudes. But you do need something suppressing the evaporation over the larger lakes, Crack and Mari in particular, to kind of keep that water in that large basin. And that's fairly consistent with kind of the observed lake distribution at Titan's North Pole in this case. And this will kind of be understanding this more as kind of some future work that I'd like to pursue as well. Then moved to kind of Mars hydrology and water in this case. And so Gale Crater is of interest because there's evidence that we've had past water in this crater. And in particular, the Mount Sharp or Aeolus Mons, the central peak, has evidence of past aqueous conditions. But in this case, I was looking actually at the late stage lake stands, particularly those mapped by Marissa Palusis. She was looking at deltas and kind of the inferred lake stands from those fan features, excuse me. And so using the hydrologic model to kind of link and constrain past climates using these inferred lake stands, finding fairly consistent, consistent with geomorphologic studies that suggest semi-arid climates as well. You can tune the parameters a bit, and you'll get closer to arid conditions. But for the most part, most realistic kind of hydrologic and atmospheric conditions suggest you're looking at kind of a return to wetter semi-arid conditions in possibly a later epoch of Gale's hydrology. And so there was a bit more work to do on this, actually looking at curiosity data and building this Gale, this Mount Sharp or Aeolus Mons, and constructing that through different epochs. And so I kind of went and started a postdoc with Jeff, who is now at University of Arizona in Tucson, and in the interim, the money had was kind of delayed getting there because of a transfer. So there was this project looking at this anomalous feature in Elysium Planitia Mars, particularly this kind of symmetric, low albedo, high thermal inertia feature around one of the Cerberus fossae in Elysium Planitia. And so this is very unique. It appears to kind of mantle the older effusive lava flows in the region, as well as kind of this finer, brighter albedo, finer grained material that we attribute to kind of a past extensive regional dust layer that's now largely been removed. It also has, there's also evidence that it has a high calcium pyroxene mineralogy. And that's not necessarily a smoking gun. I mean, you can have other, young sands that can produce the same chrism signature, but it's consistent with some of these dark pyroclastic features on the moon and Mercury. And so really the simplest explanation is that this feature is a fairly young explosive volcanic eruption that's consistent with some of the young volcanism in this region, as well as aqueous flooding that could have potentially interacted with an intruding dike to cause this eruption. It's a little bit tricky because there's a lot of aeolian features in Elysium Planitia, but the key here is that this northeast kind of elongation, darkening, is inconsistent with pretty much all of the aeolian features in this region to almost a 20 sigma level. And so it's the explosive volcanic eruption scenario is really the simplest and fits with the geologic context of this region. Now on the right here, I'm showing kind of the sequence of events that may have formed this feature. You erupt, you put this dark material, and then you remove the surrounding dust to have this feature in the current state. And so then that kind of brings us to present day. There's still more work to do on this, on Gale Crater and constructing the mound. And in this case, actually linking back to curiosity data, which is kind of overlaid here. Linking curiosity data to hydrologic models, and in this case, including some deposition within Gale Crater. So on the left, we have just a lake distribution shown in the black here. And then in the middle, you have this deposition map view. And you see, as you deposit material in Gale, you get more and more evaporative cementation further up section. And in this case, this is an arid climate. But you can get, even in this arid climate, you can get these lakes kind of forming further up section, though they're now shallow kind of playa setting. But interestingly, this is kind of an alternate hypothesis to the idea that you've had a semi-arid to arid climate shift. And in this case, you have this perpetual arid climate. But because of Gale's unique location, you can get deep lakes at the bottom, and then this evaporative cementation further up section, consistent with the observed stratigraphy. So the overarching goal is really to get at, what is the climate history of Mars? Here, just taking all these Gale pieces, you can kind of start to get at a picture of what that looked like, and that kind of is, really motivating future work. And that brings to today, now in Brownsville, Texas. It's where my partner's from, and we have a 1-year-old now, so wanting to be closer to family. And but this future work is now kind of looking at hydrology outside of Gale. Marissa Palousa's students are kind of mapping these basin contours and looking at also providing them with kind of model results and in good agreement with what's observed in Gale, this kind of semi-arid condition. But also, what I'd like to next look at is, why Gale is Gale. Is it just kind of a climate thing, or is it, the actual unique location of Gale? And if you move Gale to say the Southern Highlands, do you still get this mound forming? So it's kind of motivating future work. But there's also this future Titan work that's on the horizon. In this case, looking at the South Pole and why this lake asymmetry exists between the North and South. There's far fewer lakes at the South. There's some effect of Saturn's orbit, but climate models suggest that can't explain the entire asymmetry. And so really what we'd like to do is look at, the hydrology and try to get at why this lake asymmetry exists. And then also kind of the climate evolution and climate change on Titan from some of these paleo basins and dry lake beds on Titan's surface. And so, that's promoted some collaboration with some climate models to kind of couple these two, this hydrology model and a Titan climate model to really get at the hydrology of past and present Titan. So thank you.